Since the beginning of Russia's military buildup in Syria, world leaders have been wondering what Vladimir Putin is really up to. Yes, Putin wants to rescue his ally, the brutal Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, from losing a bloody civil war. And Russia would like to hang on to its naval facility in the Syrian port of Latakia. But is that all Putin is after? Or does he have other goals as well?
We don't truly understand yet what it is that Russia is going to do in Syria.
What experts do know is that Vladimir Putin could create a lot of trouble in the Middle East. But in the process, he could also boost the ailing Russian economy, an economy that is still in the tank from low oil prices and from Western economic sanctions over Russia's annexation of Crimea. And despite Putin's efforts to diversify the economy, it still lives or dies with energy prices.
The ruble is very sensitive to the moves of oil prices. So if oil becomes cheaper, the ruble does the same.
Putin has taken a big gamble with the public at home by going into Syria. Polls show most Russians opposed sending troops to Syria. But perhaps Putin realizes that by moving into Syria, he can protect his ally Assad and gain the side benefit of rising oil prices, thus boosting the Russian economy and his standing at home. Russia's military buildup and bombing campaign in Syria have revived the so-called security premium, a small rally in oil prices based on the fear of shortages in other parts of the world because of war in the Middle East. A big escalation in fighting could mean a big escalation in oil prices. Russia is also competing with the Saudis for energy customers, and war in the Middle East makes Saudi supplies look less reliable. And with its new airbase in Syria, Russia could coordinate with Iran to disrupt shipments from Persian Gulf and Red Sea terminals. So by unleashing his military in Syria, Vladimir Putin could kill two birds with one stone, both saving an ally and reviving Russia's oil-based economy. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. Folks, I asked our production crew to give me a map about what's happening in the Middle East so you'll see the overall consequences. Now, here is Syria. Now, there is the Mediterranean, and here is the Suez Canal, where a great deal of shipment of oil. There are pipelines that come across Turkey into Europe. But here is the place that Putin is now claiming, I'm going to be in Syria. Now, here's the deal. Right next to Syria is Iraq. They have oil reserves of 140 billion barrels right next to Syria. Now, up from there is Iran with 157 billion barrels of oil. And down, of course, south of Iraq is Kuwait, and then the Persian Gulf. So the oil flows down the Persian Gulf this way, and it goes out through the Straits of Hormuz that is choked right there by Iran. So you've got 157 barrels. Now, the big prize, of course, is Saudi Arabia, 268 billion barrels of oil. Now, here you've got the majority, 60–70% of all the oil on the planet right in this little area here. Now, the other place that can be controlled out of here, the oil will come down the Persian Gulf, and then often it could go south of Oman and back up into what is called the Bab el-Mandeb, which is Yemen. And it goes up the Red Sea, and it would be transported to Europe through the Suez Canal, which is right here. Now, if Putin has control over Syria and then comes into Iraq, and he's already got an alliance with Iran, he can force the Saudis into some kind of a concession. Now, up to this point, the Saudis have made a deal with America. They say, we're going to sell our oil to you, but it has to be priced in dollars, which means that if, for example, Turkey wants oil, or up farther into Russia, which has 80 billion barrels, if Russia wants to sell its oil on the world market, it has first to convert its rubles into dollars, and then people can buy oil. But once Saudi goes to Russia or Iraq and Iran go to Russia, then all of a sudden the deal with the United States is off and our dollar is no longer supreme. We're talking about what it would take to choke off the economic progress of the whole European continent. And Putin, knows what he's dealing with. So if he has control over the Suez, he has control over the Straits of Hormuz, he has control over the Bab el-Mandeb, he has control over all this oil, he will be the master of the universe. And he knows it. And he knows he can bring America to its knees if he gets that. Now that's what he's playing for. This little piece of land here, Syria, is where he is now going to be in control. He will have control of Syria, and along with it, any pipelines that go across Turkey, the oil out of Iraq, the oil out of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the Persian Gulf, the Suez Canal, all this will be under his control. That's what he wants. He wants to take control of all of it, and that's how it'll be played out. But it'll come right out of Syria. Right now, he's got a naval base here on the edge of Syria. He has troops into Syria. He can now, of course, threaten Jordan. He can threaten Iraq. And, of course, his planes are actually incursioning into Turkey. The Turks have complained about him violating their airspace, and he can move against them. All this has tremendous prophetic significance if you read Ezekiel chapter 38. So that's where it all is. And that's the long game. So keep your eyes on what's happening. But we're giving it to him by default without him having to fire a shot. He's taking all this over, and our president is advocating or abdicating control of this entire region, which at this point has been the dominant, the United States has been the dominant player.